Good evening. Lieutenant General Williams and Mrs. Williams, Brigadier General Gillen and Mrs. Gillen, Athletic Director Boo Corrigan and Kristen Corrigan, who we can't thank enough for the last 8 years for your leadership, your dedication, and your loyalty. My dear friends and classmates, Colonel Holly West and Lieutenant Colonel retired Mark West, Command Sergeant Major Love and Mrs. Love, and my wife, Kristen. And of course, the class of 2019, give yourselves a hand. This is such a phenomenal place. It's a privilege to be asked by you to share my thoughts on what lies ahead in the last 100 days as cadets, and as you begin the rest of your professional lives. When I sat in your seat so many years ago on our 100th night, I could not have imagined being given such an honor and privilege to be your guest speaker. Thank you. We are danger close to it being nearly 3 decades since my class, the class of 1991, celebrated its 100th night dinner. Looking back, it's unbelievable to me what has unfolded over the last 28 years. I can assure you not one of us could have predicted anywhere close to how our lives would unfold and how the world around us would change. My class entered West Point having never seen an Army in a major conflict. It was a golden time for a fully paid, great education with little probability of being in harm's way. In contrast, your class, the class of 2019, entered West Point having grown up during the longest sustained military conflict of our lifetime. You chose West Point during a time of great conflict, and you answered the sound of the drums when our country needed the greatest number of young military leaders in 5 decades. And heroically, you answered the bell when it was nearly certain you would be in harm's way, and for that, we could not be more grateful. While our class began the journey to West Point under different global circumstances, it was without a doubt that West Point has prepared you and us for the wide range of uncertainty that will unfold. You will use what you've been taught in unexpected ways and at unexpected times. You will be surprised at just how much of what you've learned here in our rock-bound Highland home will apply to your everyday life over the next 25 years. Before sharing my thoughts on these themes, I want to first acknowledge a few things about your class. I picked some things that we'll all be proud of, some things that will bring a tear, and some that will, well, make us wince. Yours is the first class of cadets to be more than 1/5 women at 22% of the graduating class. While we still have more work to do, diversity is key to making West Point better and our Army better. You should all be proud of making this progress possible. Academically, you've excelled as a class in many ways. Among you sit 6 cadets awarded scholarships recognizing our nation's highest academic standards: 3 Marshall Scholarships, 2 Schwartzman Scholarships, and 1 Churchill Scholarship. In athletics, you beat Navy in football 3 times, and after a decade of losses, took home the Commanders-in-Chief trophy back-to-back, and so many other firsts. We beat Navy in wrestling for the first time back-to-back in 50 years. You've won too many Patriot League championships for me to name them all. In total, you have a collective 1,007 wins across all sports and 50 against Navy. Two of your classmates are not here with us tonight. The tragic loss of Brendan Jackson impacted his teammates, his coaches, his family, and so many of you and so many others in profound ways. Our family often texts each other before big games his favorite quote from a popular rap song: "Scared money don't make no money." Thomas Surdike is also not here today, having paid the ultimate price through his bravery. Nearly 3 years ago, Thomas Surdike demonstrated the epitome of selfless service in saving the life of a civilian he had only just met, but lost his life while doing so. Let's remember both of them and their families in these last 100 days. On a lighter note, let's reflect on those events that cause us all to wince and some to chuckle. I'm talking, of course, about the pillow fight Of all the lessons you may have learned here, surely you now know that the items harder than your head, that were made to protect your head like a Kevlar helmet, should not be slammed into your classmate's face in a pillowcase. Okay, tonight I want to discuss two things. First, some simple words of advice on your last 100 days and things to consider as you enter the Army. And second, the importance of clear values in your life and how they can be the foundation of the culture you set for your units as you go off on the next 25 years of your life. To start, here are a few simple pieces of advice in your last 100 days at West Point and your time as you start in the Army. Number one, just as my man Tony said, be present in your last 100 days. Cherish your last 100 days. There will be nothing else like your last 100 days. On everything that is offered, do it. Don't skip. Don't choose to rack out. Don't say, I can always do that later. Do it all, every event, every minute, every moment. Graduation is the culmination of 4 years of hard work, but the last 100 days is really about the celebration of those 4 years. Number two, pick 100 people to say thank you to and take 100 photos. Do one each day and spend time with them when you say it. If you don't say thank you now, you will never say thank you. Let them know how they made a difference. The photos will lock in memories forever. Number three, the Army. Your time in the Army is another chance to build lifelong friends, not just new friends that are classmates or older grads that you never met, but friends from the ranks of ROTC, OCS, the National Guard, and most importantly, your soldiers. Put their names and numbers in your phone book. Stay in touch with them. Stay loyal to them. You will impact each other's lives in unimaginable ways, and the emotional rewards you will have for doing so will be priceless. Number four, remember that graduating from West Point is not the end, but the beginning. The challenges to make it here are great, but don't use that to convince yourself that you have done the impossible and the next 50 years are all about coasting. Challenge yourself to take the harder road every day after you leave here. Don't make graduating from West Point the peak in the arc of your life. Our nation picked you among so many others that did not get the opportunity that you were given to come to West Point. Make graduating from West Point the beginning of a new arc of your life and a stepping stone to greater things, and in doing so, you give back to your family and friends that supported you here and to our great institution. Number six, ask yourself the question, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? What's the worst possible thing that could happen? That is the advice an old, crusty, multi-tour Vietnam staff sergeant gave me and Charlie Company at West Point Prep School in 1986. His advice was illustrated by the story of a fatal decision of a young lieutenant to take an unauthorized route that led to dozens of fatalities while leading a patrol in Vietnam. The advice was this: when you are faced with a decision that could have negative consequences, ask yourself, what is the worst possible thing that could happen, and if I choose X? If you cannot live with the answer to that question, then don't pick that path. The probability of the worst thing happening is irrelevant. What is relevant is the fact that if it does happen, you cannot live with the consequences. Therefore, don't do it. This question, this test, what is the worst possible thing that can happen and can I live with it, applies to all the decisions you will make, from getting into a car to drive after a couple of drinks, to taking an unauthorized route on patrol, to posting something mean or illicit on social media, and so many things in between. Trust me, I have asked myself this very question at many moments in my life, and it has made all of the difference. So that's this 50-year-old man's advice for you on the next 100 days. But what happens next when you leave West Point? How do you apply what you learned here out in the world? In my experience, it all comes down to values and how you translate what you learned at West Point into a practical application outside the gates and through the rest of your life. The world you will leave will not have the same foundation that you have from West Point. Most people have not been afforded the same opportunities to learn and grow, to lead and fail, to get back up 10 times when you've been knocked down 9. I can assure you that the people you speak to will never have heard of Schofield's definition of discipline or General MacArthur's famous duty, honor, country speech. To lead them, you have to learn how to take the values you've learned here and make them practical to how you lead every day. Everything I learned at West Point has had practical applications in both my Army and professional life. I've used what I've learned here every day for the last 28 years. It hasn't been without failure, and it certainly hasn't always been obvious. But West Point's values have never steered me wrong, and it's always been my North Star. Let me share a story. I made a big change in my life last year and left my job as a chief operating officer of Twitter to become the CEO of SoFi. When I joined SoFi, my top priority was establishing the core values of the company that would build the foundation of the best culture in the world. That may sound like hyperbole, but it's truly our aim. It doesn't take money or capital or unique technology or some innovation to build the best culture in the world. No, it doesn't take any of those things. What it does take is unwavering leadership. It takes setting a standard, getting alignment, and holding people accountable. I am confident we will have the best culture in the world because I am committed to those things, as is my team and our company. To accomplish our long-term goal, we established 11 core values to set the standard for behaviors we hold everyone at SoFi accountable for. Many of our 11 core values are a reflection of everything I've learned as a leader, as a teammate, and as a partner, but they are more influenced by my time as a cadet than any other factor. I won't get through all of them tonight, but I want to highlight a few of these 11 core values for you and how they bridge back to my time here and your time as well. Our first core value at SoFi is that we must put our members' interests first. If we take care of our members' interests, it'll best serve our interests. Similarly, I am sure you've heard more than once, you must always take care of your soldiers. And if you do, they will take care of you. Just like an Army unit, a business is built on trust. Our members have to trust us to treat them fairly, to give them transparency and good guidance. When we do that, it reinforces that trust and forges a bond that helps us both succeed. Make it your first core value in all that you do in the Army and in life to take care of your soldiers and your constituencies. The second value I want to highlight is to embrace diversity. Everyone should feel welcome, included, and able to contribute. Diversity is a differentiator, and we want our team at SoFi to reflect society so that we can meet everyone's needs. The Army is one of the most organically diverse organizations in the world. My first platoon was 50% men and 50% women, and it made all the difference. The inclusiveness of that unit, without a doubt, broadened all of our worldviews. It built a stronger unit, and it certainly made me a better leader. As a junior officer, you're not able to pick the soldiers in your unit, but you are certainly able to decide who to put in leadership positions, who to delegate authority to, who to give opportunities for training and development, and critically, who to promote. Quite simply, you must build a culture of diversity, and you will be a better leader, and you will have a better team. The third SoFi value I want to highlight is do the right thing. If you're not sure, do the harder thing. Hopefully you recognize the similarities to the cadet prayer. Make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when a whole can be won. Our business and your units will be built on trust and integrity, which requires both adhering to the letter of the law and regulations and doing the right thing for the company and our members. As much as I could talk about all 11 of our core values and how they relate to what you've learned at West Point, I want to focus my final comments on just 3. There are 3 SoFi core values that I've carried with me for decades. The first, build a culture of people that run after problems. The second, build a culture that is committed to getting to the truth. The third, build a culture of people that will make their footprint bigger than their foot. The reason I've carried these core values for decades is because they tie directly to duty on our country. I would guess that after I said those 3 words, many of you continued to play General MacArthur's famous speech in his head. Those 3 hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying points to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause of faith, to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. Woo. I can assure you that, as General MacArthur said, I also do not have the elegance of diction nor the poetry of imagination to describe all that Dunarani country can be. But when I challenge myself to identify the things that West Point taught me that have had the greatest impact on my life, I find myself coming back to duty on our country. I'm pretty confident if you address your first platoon by studying General MacArthur's Duty on Our Country speech, you will lose the attention, the respect, and the ability to relate to your soldiers in less than 60 seconds. But if you focus instead on the practical applications, I think you'll be surprised how much it resonates. Let me explain why. Duty. You must instill a culture that sees it as their duty to run after problems. Every organization has problems that fall between the cracks, whether it's a business or a platoons or a battalion, brigade, or a division. Problems that are not tied to one leader or another. Problems that if you don't get fixed, no one individual fails. Problems that ultimately hold the entire organization back. Great leaders see the problems and the lack of accountability and run after those problems to fix them. Not because it's on them to fix, but because it needs to be done for the greater good. Great leaders ask themselves, how can I fix that problem? They don't think, that's not my problem. They run after problems because it's their duty, because if they don't, the unit fails even though they may succeed. Running after problems is a mindset, it's a culture. Build the mindset in your unit to run after problems, and you will instill in your unit, your company, your organization, a sense of duty without ever mentioning the word duty. Honor, get to the truth. A team, a company, a unit cannot be excellent if you do not get to the truth. When I say truth, I am not talking about the obvious difference between black and white, between lying and cheating. But what I am talking about is that gray area between black and white. What I'm talking about is the judgment required to make critical decisions that will lead to success or failure. You cannot make the best decisions without the right information, without the right data, without all the facts, without the team's perspective, a diverse perspective, without the truth. Sometimes this means testing the choices and making sure you don't use the data that solves for your favorite outcome, but use all the data to make the best decision. This means keeping an open mind, even after you have 99% of the data and the information and perspectives, because that last 1% of information, that last 1% of the thought process could be the most critical piece of information. I cannot tell you how often leaders have made a decision before they have any data. As a leader, you must set the example and drive the organization to always get to the truth, because if you honor the truth, you will make the best decisions, and only then can the team reach excellence. So remember, honor means getting to the truth. Country. Make your footprint bigger than your foot. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry are great examples of athletes that make the other four players on the ice or the basketball court better than they otherwise would be. They're all people that make their footprint bigger than their foot. They are special, talented individuals. But you don't have to be a great athlete to make your footprint bigger than your foot. What you have to do is play for the name on the front of your jersey, not the back. There is no doubt in my mind that at some point over the next 10 years, you will come up with a great innovative idea that can drive the performance of your unit, whether it be an Army unit or a private company. It might be a new SOP or a new tactical maneuver or a new strategy to beat your fiercest competitor. What you must do, what you have to do at that point is to resist the urge to just use it for your unit or your team, but instead, compel yourself to share the idea with every unit just like your unit, so you make every unit better, not just your unit. In doing so, you will make your footprint bigger than your foot and be like Steph Curry. Build a culture of people that want to play for the name on the front of their jersey, not the back. I said I was only going to talk about 3 core values, and those are now done. But I have a final one that bears mentioning. Why? It's one I never would have thought of. It's our 11th core value. And it's one that one of our executives brought to me after we decided our first 10 core values. In fact, it was one of my direct reports. And it was suggested to me, and other people felt like the ship had sailed. We had already set the 10 core values. Why do we have to entertain an 11th? When she mentioned her recommendation, some of her team chuckled. I instantly felt my mouth widen, my lips start to curl up to my ears, and I began to smile. No, Joanne is right. She's absolutely right. We need an 11th core value. So, our 11th core value is, don't forget to smile. Our ambition is contagious. It makes us smile to see people inside and outside of SoFi succeed. I love this core value because every time I see it on the wall, or on a computer screen, or in a t-shirt, and every time I say it, the people in front of me smile too. Humanity, humility, and smiling are also important to being a great leader. Joanne's recommendation taught me to smile, and it taught me and SoFi to be better. And in doing so, it made us all better. She made her footprint bigger than her foot. She taught us to listen to all the information, to get to the truth, and for that, we're all better off. Remember what I said earlier about embracing diversity? It will absolutely make you a better leader and your team better. In 100 days, you will start the second most critical phase of your life. There is no way to predict the obstacles, the opportunities, the failures, or the successes that you'll experience. But if you instill in your teams, in your unit, in your organization, number one, a culture that runs after problems, duty. Number two, a culture that gets to the truth, honor. And number three, a culture of people that make their footprint bigger than your foot, then you'll have carried with you the bedrock of West Point and those three hallowed words that reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be, and duty on our country. Who dares wins. Thank you, and beat Navy.
Mr. Noto, on behalf of the class of 2019, I would like to present you with this Golden Eagle as appreciation for your words tonight.